Good morning, guys. It's Amy from Little Farm Quilts. The camera's bouncing a little bit, so we'll just let that settle down. It is Sunday, January 12th, I believe. Yes, Friday was the 10th. I meant to do this video yesterday. Strangest thing, the weather here has been kind of crazy. So for those of you that don't know where I live in upstate New York. We went from being in the teens, we got some snow, went into the teens, and then we went up into the 50s. Today we are in the 40s and there's high winds. So yesterday morning I woke up with a killer headache. Took some medicine. I pretty much relaxed and stayed low-key yesterday. I didn't get ready for anything other than to take a shower. Really did not do much with my hair. Definitely did not put makeup on. Did not look my best and decided maybe yesterday wasn't the greatest day to do that video. Today, I don't know if you guys can hear it. I still hear very sinusy stuff going on in my head. I did wake up with a headache again this morning. Of course, I went to bed with one last night. But it's duller today. Feels better today. I feel better today other than just being tired from not sleeping very well. But, you know, tired is normal for me anyway because I don't typically sleep well. This was a different not sleeping well. And then I just basically didn't feel good. So laying down did not make my head feel any better. So I spent a lot of time sitting up on the couch. And you know those things. You just tip your head back and just kind of relax. And I have a nice couch for that. So it was nice. I've done a lot of middle of the night stitching in the last couple of nights, which is also good. So you got to look at the positives. But I said to my husband this morning, my sinuses cannot deal with these weather extremes, like changing seasons in 24 to 48 hours. And I do the same thing in the spring when we slam into summer. It seems like there is no segue in upstate New York. I've lived here most of my life with, I would say under 10 years of my life have I not lived here. That being said, I lived a couple of years overseas. I lived a few years up in northern Maine. I was born in North Carolina. So, I mean, other than that, I have lived in upstate New York the rest of my life, which is the majority of the time. And every year I go through this thing where when we do this January thaw in January, I struggle to get through it health-wise. And not a big thing. It's not like I have the flu. It's not like I have a cold. It's a constant sinus headache. Yesterday, I don't know what this really feels like, but I'm sure those of you that struggle with headaches can sympathize with me a little bit. It feels what I believe it would feel like if somebody took a hatchet to your forehead. And I know that sounds serious, but I am not a wuss when it comes to pain. And those headaches will take me out. I don't think I cross-stitched yesterday until... Actually, I don't think I cross-stitched yesterday until evening. I cross-stitched a little in the middle of the night and put it down. And then I did not pick it up again until evening. I was doing other things, but not cross-stitching because, you know, you need good vision for that. And when I have a headache, I struggle with good vision. So I don't like to look at the stitches later and see how bad they were because I pressed through and have to frog them out. I don't like frogging by any stretch of the imagination, which we'll talk about again later. But it is what it is. I have a couple tissues here. I'm not stopping the video if I have to dab my nose because I do have drippy nose. So you guys are just gonna, like always, take me as I am, and it is what it is. If you're a returning viewer of mine, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Sorry I'm a day late. If you are new, thanks for coming. If you haven't gotten it from the first, let's see, almost 5 minutes of this video, you pretty much get me as I am when I have time to do videos. So sometimes hair is pretty and down. Sometimes I don't want to do anything and it goes up. Sometimes I'm in a t-shirt and ratty sweatshirt. And my videos, I try to do them on Saturday morning, these videos on Saturday mornings. I think this might be my Flosstube number 8. 7 or 8. I'll have to look back before I label it when I load it, but I've now incorporated my sewing into this video, and plans going forward are for me to be posting some of my long arm quilting videos. So I'm working on filming apparatus for that, that gets kind of the bounce out of it. So sorry, drippy nose, which I knew was going to happen, so I did come prepared. I have lots to talk about today, so much so that I made a list. You can't see it in front of me, but my cutting table is full of stuff. I have been on an organizing rampage for both my sewing and quilting and my stitching. Work has been busy, but I'm kind of sticking to my 8 hours a day and maybe doing a little here and there over, but when needed, but not a whole lot, like 5 or 10 minutes. I'm really dedicating more time to home. I think as I get older, I get better at separating work and home and drawing for hard lines. But as I went through my cross stitch, if you guys joined me last week, you'll know this. If you didn't watch last week's, go back after this, watch last week's, you'll see exactly what I did. I went through and listed all of my cross stitch whips and all my quilting whips, and I have been on an organizing bonanza to get my spaces pretty to be in and organized and not messy and chaotic and stuff like that. So I am almost done the sewing area. Yesterday morning when I couldn't stitch, obviously I showered, I came down into my sewing studio. I spent all day down here because it's comfortable. I mean, I have a TV. I can Google cast to the TV. I have my cutting station, my ironing board. I have a wax melter going. I have a family room down here, so if I'm taking a break to do something else other than sewing like I did yesterday, I can put a movie on the TV. My husband was out doing stuff in the garage all day. We are empty nesters. I have a lot of free time when I'm home. And we have cleaning ladies, so before I hear about the cleaning lady thing, it's my mother-in-law and my grandmother-in-law. My grandmother-in-law, I believe, is 92, and she likes to clean houses, and she still cleans several houses every other week. So every week she has a few houses that she goes to do, and between my mother-in-law and my husband's cousin, they go with her because she doesn't drive anymore, and she cleans. And I give them a lot of little spending cash. And so I came home, Friday was our cleaning day, and I came home from work and the house was just clean. The only part that they don't clean is down here in the finished basement because, well, A, I don't want them going up and down the steps. Neither one of them negotiate steps very well, so I don't want that to happen. And B, it's my mess down here, you know. Up there we have dogs, we have geriatric dogs, if you've been following along, those are whole other issues right now. But they clean the upstairs, so I come home Friday and everything's been wiped down, floors have been mopped, vacuumed, the furniture's been vacuumed because I have a lot of fur everywhere all the time. The bathrooms have been cleaned, so that part is not done. And because I got my stuff together last week, because I don't want to swear on a video, I was able to get mine and Matt's laundry basically done too, other than popping in one last load today. So as far as chores go, other than cooking dinner, I really haven't had much to do there. So I was able to spend the whole day down here yesterday. And I like it down here. This is my favorite part of the house. This time of year when the weather's kind of crappy and iffy, it's just my favorite part of the house. I like being with my crafting things. I like spending a lot of time doing it. That's why I long arm for people. It subsidizes all of that. And yeah, I organize. So let's start with sewing first. I went through, I have a string bin. So for those of you that quilt, I manage my scraps in a scrap user system. So every time I'm done with a project, well, I should do it after I'm done with a project. Now, be clear, I have a Rubbermaid tote right under this table that was twice as full as it was yesterday, so I managed some of them yesterday that still need to be managed, the scraps from projects. I cut them down into a scrap user system that is it's a combination of what I have found that I use most of, and but it was inspired by Bonnie Hunter's scrap user system. I keep 1.5 inch strips, which I don't think I'm going to keep anymore because I don't use them except in my project bags, and actually I can make those. Do you know what I mean? I keep strings, so anything under 1.5 inches that's longer than 5 or 6 inches, I keep in a bin. Those are for string blocks, and I wish I had brought a sample. I do have some, but I don't want to stop the video to get it. Comment below if you want to see what a string block looks like, and I will post a picture of them. I sorted my strings into 3 different bins. I have a bin of neutrals, a bin of blues, greens, and a bin of reds, pinks, oranges. I didn't have any yellows. I didn't have any purples. Those aren't big colors that I use a lot, so it didn't surprise me I didn't have any, but I will add bins if I get those colors. And I'm going to start string piecing blocks by color. My thought is I might have to do a tutorial on string piecing, I think, now that I'm talking about it, but if you're interested in that, let me know. I'll add that to my list of tutorials. String blocks are really nice to use as borders on quilts. I've used them twice. I like the look of them, especially on heavily pieced quilts like the mystery quilt, or just a quilts with lots of smaller pieces. And I just think it would be nice if I had those pages already done and had them here for me to use at my leisure. So I'm going to do that. So that's what I did yesterday. I managed half my Rubbermaid tote of scraps yesterday. I also keep, I'm looking just to remind me, 2-inch strips, 2.5-inch strips, 2.5-inch squares, and 3-inch strips. So I have a Rubbermaid tote, small one, small ones for each of those. The 2.5-inch squares, and I'm going to try to get this out without knocking the camera too much. I actually have this container. I had this in my pantry. It had flour in it. I broke the top. I'm trying to get it off the shelf in the pantry. And then we've gone to a really low sugar, kind of low carby kind of eating way as we age. We find that we feel better that way. So I'm not baking like I used to. So I really don't need this container. And this is a container of 2.5-inch squares that I've gotten out of scraps of projects. Now, I wonder if I put these right on top of those. I bet I did. So when I sew and I chain piece, if you followed along, you know what chain piecing is. If you don't, look at some of my other sewing videos and you will see that I chain piece. Out of those 2.5-inch squares, I'm going to make 16 patches. So I'm going to make 4 patches and put them together for 16 patches. And then I will do something with them to make a quilt. So follow along, see what I come up with. But that's going to be my 2020, what I'm going to call my leaders and enders. And we'll see what I come up with at the end of the year and what I decide to make it into. So follow along for that. But I wrangled a lot of my scraps. I organized all my whips. I'm looking over now because they're all in bins at different stages or hanging to be quilted over in one section by my long arm. And I organized some fabric. Anyway, it's just, I set up one of my older Singer machines. So I have 3 machines that I regularly use. I have my piecing machine, which is a straight stitch only. It's a Brother TQ something. I should have written that down because I knew I was going to forget it once I came over here. It's a mid-arm machine. It's got a large throat on it. I also have a old Singer over in a cabinet that I am going to set up to bind quilts so that I can stack quilts that need to be bound there. And I have a little Eversewn Sparrow 20 here on my cutting mat because it takes little space, and that has zigzags, all the specialty stitches in it, so I can zigzag my cross stitch material. I can, if I want a specialty stitch, I've got that here, and it's on a table that has room. So I have everything organized, so that's good. I'm just taking a peek at my list to make sure I got everything I wanted to get on that. So organizing this weekend was a good thing. Spent a lot of time yesterday doing that. The one other thing I wanted to talk about before we get too much more into the sewing part, well, let's finish the sewing first and then I'll go into that. So Bonnie Hunter has her mystery quilt going on right now. It's called Frolic. I will link her blog in the description box below. I love it. This is my 4th one. It teaches me something new every time, and they're beautiful quilts. So you can look up on her, she's got a Facebook page, she's got a blog, quiltville.blogspot.com, and see, but I spent the morning yesterday, the first 3 hours of the morning, catching up on that. So that being said, I'm going to show you a little bit. So this is clue 8. I'm not going to show you details. And actually, I don't remember which clue this one is now. It might have been 2. I don't know. We're on clue 8, so we had some 4 patches. We have a lot of pieces and parts. And then this one. And this one. So lots of pieces and parts. Yesterday, I got it all cut up. This week was some assembly, no more cutting. I'm curious as to what this Friday is going to be. Each clue releases on Fridays, starting on Black Friday. It usually ends in January. However, because Thanksgiving was a week later this year, she's carrying it through a little longer, so I'm not sure how long it's going to go. Nobody does. It's a mystery quilt. That's what we do. I was also able to cross off a finish on my quilting whips list, so I'm just going to remind you guys. This was my quilting whips list for 2020. And I was able to bind one that was just sitting ready to be bound. Let me scooch this chair. And I finished it yesterday. I still have some strings to cut off, but I wanted to show you guys. It's a lab pan. Oh, I got it upside down. I have a lab. This was a lab panel that I added borders to, and I don't know if you can tell on there, I did a paw print quilting design on here, and I really like it. It might have to go up. I was struggling whether to put this in my shop, my Etsy shop, or to put it in my living room. We have a chocolate lab, Riley, who is turning 13 next month. Yeah, he's been struggling with some stuff, and I have threads on me now. He's just getting older. It's kind of sad to watch, but I think we're nearing the end of his lifetime. Let me adjust this chair. And then we have a shepherd. I'm going to keep bouncing the phone every time I do that. So sorry about that. We have a shepherd who is right behind him. I think he's 10 with some bad hips. So it is what it is. The other thing I was able to do today is I am part of the 2019 Designer Mystery Block of the Month at the Fat Quarter Shop. I was 2 blocks behind, block 7 and 8. This is block 7. Yep, 7. This is block 8. They are both cut out. I have block 7 partially sewn. I was actually hoping to get that done to show you guys, but I didn't get it done before I wanted to get this video done. I'm here by myself this morning, and the dogs could start barking and really throw a kink into this video, so I kind of wanted to get it done. This is going to make sense to all you geriatric dog owners. after they all went out to go potty and while they're all sleeping upstairs in the living room, because once they go to sleep, they don't hear a lot and they don't bark as much. So once they went to sleep, I was kind of like, okay, now's the time to do a video. But I will have that all caught up today, so that will feel good as well. I talked about the mystery quilt. I talked about the quilt finish. And I think that's it about sewing. A lot of my time sewing has been, well, I starched fabric for these blocks, and then just the organizing part of getting everything ready to go so I can game on and get some stuff done. So cross stitch. Let's look at haul first, because haul's a thing. I do not have much haul this week. And I'm trying to find one of them right now because I had to start it. Yep, here it is. I had to start it yesterday, or I wanted to start it yesterday, so it's actually in a bag already. I only have 2 things for haul this week, but I do have a lot coming in this coming week. It just seems to be the convergence of a lot of things that I had going. So I only have 2 things to show you, so I just show you. The first one is Little House Needlework Suffrage Act. It is this. This year is the 100th anniversary of Women's Right to Vote. And this is a stitch along with Stitching with the Sisterlies. I think 2 Martini Stitchers doing it. There is a million people doing it, I think. I'm going to get ready to post my progress on this. I'll show you that in a minute. With the hashtag SWTS suffrage. And the goal is to get it done before November elections. And I think that's completely doable. But I like the fact I don't have a lot of patriotic cross stitch. And I think that this is one. I do have one hanging behind me, Land That I Love, which I did last year. But I'd like to have more. So this will be a good one. And since it was a stitch along, I added it to my cross stitch whip list, which I said I wasn't going to have any new starts until I finished something. I finished a couple things. I have a couple new starts. The other part of haul I have is Winter ABCs by Little House Needleworks. Let's see if I can get it without the glare. I'm trying not to start this because I have lots of patterns I would love to start. And I do think I'm going to start going through my patterns and picking out my mania patterns and start slowly kitting them up. So that was my haul for this week. Let me keep the Suffrage Act here because it will be with whips. I have a dog upstairs whining now. That's my haul. And it's Riley. So I want to show you a couple finishes. I did make myself some project bags. They're not perfect, and I'm by sure not selling them. They are quick workups for me, and they're not perfect. But I have new project bags that I'm adding to my stock, and I already used one for this one. To try to get enough project bags, I'm making them slow but sure, probably 4 or 5 at a time. What I do is when I'm quilting on my long arm, if I have extra space, I'll stick fat quarters up there and just quilt them, and then those end up being the backs to my project bags, and that's when I end up making them. I'll make them like 2 or 3, 4 at a time, and then I whip them up, and they're not perfect. They're done with leftover bindings. I have zippers. They're done with leftover fabric. I have vinyl. I usually do the 4 or 5, cut the vinyl, and have them all set up in sets for me to do. The sewing's not perfect because I don't take the time to clamp everything together. Sometimes they look a little wonky, but honestly, they're just for me to use, and they're just to protect my cross stitch. So I don't need them to be perfect, and they're quick projects. I whipped up 5 of them yesterday in probably an hour once I had everything cut in together. Cutting the vinyl is probably the hardest part for me because if you don't keep the paper lined up, you can't tell the edge of the vinyl under my ruler. So that's kind of that. Couple finishes. So I'm going to remind everybody about Snow Village. I finished part 3. I started part 4. So this was part 1. And I don't remember. I think this was part 2, if I'm remembering right. And this is part 3. 3 is a finish for me this week. And you remember, I'm going to show you the boo jar. I got this done a while ago. I haven't FFO'd it yet. But the small I had not gotten done. The small I finished this week. And the snowy is the next jar that we got. This is I'll show you the pattern in a second. This is a collaboration between Hands Eye Design and Priscilla Blaine, and I did the small. And there's the small. There is a mistake in here. I shouldn't point this stuff out. This snowman on the one side is all 1 stitch off, both in spacing and somewhere else. And I couldn't figure out. I think it looks okay though. I couldn't figure out where I went wrong, honestly. So, I didn't go back to frog it. I usually try to make it work. I try not to frog. I don't like frogging. I think especially when you work with the overdyed, the specialty floss, frogging disrupts the integrity of the floss. So I don't really like to do that. It is what it is. I mean, if it's only 1 stitch off, I'm just going to kind of go with it, I think. And usually I try to make it work unless it looks really wonky, and then I'll fix it. I will frog more on 14 count Aida than I am likely to do it on anything else. Because if I'm on a linen, or if I'm on Monaco even, I find frogging not worth the time and effort that it takes to do that, unless it really looks wonky. And if it really looks wonky, I'm more likely to cut the stitches out than to frog it, because I feel like if I have to take out more than just 2 stitches, when I'm done, that floss is going to be shredding, and I don't like that. So I'll just start over. If it's way too many stitches, I will just turn the fabric over, start in a different corner, because I've left myself enough space to be able to do that. And then I don't frog, because to me it just takes a lot of time to frog. It really does, I find, disturb the integrity of some of these flosses. So I try to stitch perfect to begin with. But when you're late night stitching, sometimes you do that 1 stitch off thing. It is what it is. Something I should have talked about in the sewing. Fat Quarter Shop has their Bloomtopia charity quilt benefiting Make-A-Wish in Texas. I am participating in the Bloomtopia quilt. I have bought the kit and the backing set, and that will be on its way this week, and I'll be able to show you next week, which is awesome. They also have a cross stitch pattern that's going to start to release, I believe, 1st of February. But you can go to their blog, Jolly Jabber. I'll link them below, and get all the details for that. They do have a thread pack, which I'm not sure is still in stock, but I have had this for a while. It's the Bloomtopia thread pack. What they're stitching on is 25 count Lugana in pewter, so I've got some of that. And I got their Bloomtopia project bag, and I've showed all this before, but I wanted to show it again. That will start up here soon, so I am kitted up and ready to go. I think the only thing that I really need, how is it that I need more needles? Like, I really need cross stitch needles, and I have a couple ballpoints here, but I cannot find, like, I don't know if I've just lost them or what, but needles just go missing. So I'm all kitted up for the Bloomtopia charity stitch along. The suggestion is to donate each week a pattern is released, or $15 one-time donation, and then the patterns will release over every week in February, I believe. But like I said, I'm going to link the Jolly Jabber below. You go click, take a look, donate what you want. If you only have $1, donate $1. Every little bit comes together to help. And so I'm all about us turning our crafting into something that gives back. I've been watching a ton of other new to me Flosstubers. They're definitely not new because they're way more established than I am this week. And I've been watching about Australia fires, and there are lots that have patterns for sale that benefit the firefighting efforts in Australia. So I, search those out. If you're a stitcher and a crafter, you can turn that around to help benefit some cause. And I'm sure there's probably something out there for everybody. So, and if there's not, do one. If you're a YouTuber and you've got a following, do one. Do a stitch along and, have it benefit somewhere or whatever. But I'm all about turning this around to do good for others. So there's that. All right. Haul is done. I have a lot more coming this week on haul. I have the Bloomtopia quilt kit and backing set. I have I think another mystery block. No, that came. There's more coming. I'm not remembering right off. Oh, my Floss Club from Fat Quarter Shop from Classic Colorworks. I think it's the blues this time, so I'm excited. Blues and greens are my fave in anything, so I'm super excited. All right, I'm going to go to whips. So I showed you Suffrageact. I did start this last night. It came in the mail yesterday. I wanted to start it because it's the sew along with Stitching with the Sisterlies. I'm stitching this on what looks like, I should really label my fabric so I can tell you exactly what it is. It looks like Monaco is what it looks like to me. 28 count Monaco, and it looks like it's been tea-dyed. I don't think I bought it this color. I think I must have tea-dyed it, and I was able to get the top red line done. Now, in D and almost all of the E done. I always start in the, if you're looking at the piece, the top right hand corner. That's always where I start. So I started this red line here and I worked across. I do one cross stitch at a time, and in here I work up and down from right to left. I don't know why. I think that's backwards than it is for most right-handed stitchers, but I never said I was normal, so there you go. And this was what I got done last night. In just like an hour or so of stitching, I was able to watch, I think it was more than an hour. It's probably about an hour and a half. We were watching The Guardian on the TV, which is a good movie with Kevin Costner, who's like one of my favorites. So yeah, I just dated myself. But anyway, that's what I got done. I probably will not work on this again today. I am on, so we'll go to this too. I'll explain it later. But I'm probably not going to work on this anymore today. I may pick it up again during the week. I did substitute reds. I did not have, so I thought I did have cherry cobbler. I do not. So what did I substitute in for this? And I'm all about substitutions and using what you have. And I have tons of different reds here, so because of my Floss Club. So, and I could have cherry cobbler kitted up somewhere else. I don't think so though. I used licorice red. I thought it looked good. I did kind of a floss toss on the fabric with the blue and everything. I'll show you if I can. And I think the red looked really good with the blue and the black coffee. It's blue corn blue and gingerbread. And I did kind of a fabric toss, and I thought that red worked well. So that's why I chose that. And I chose it because that's what I have. So let me put this one back together. And I am looking at my wall, like right my pegboard wall. You guys have seen it if you've watched my tour. I have a lot of reds over there, and I came down looking for cherry cobbler, and I didn't have it, and I just kind of did that floss toss thing, which I've never really done that before. And I picked that red based on what I like the looks of, and I think that's the point of it, is to make these things your own. I don't substitute floss a whole lot. I am probably the most substituting I'm doing is on the Christmas Advent, which I showed you guys a few weeks ago. I really have not worked on it. I might put that in my daily rotation, but that one I'm doing all the numbers in black coffee, and I'm doing all of the reds and all of those things ribbon red, and as I get to other colors I will decide there as I get there. I'll probably do some sort of posting showing you kind of what colors, how they turned out, and what colors I've used, and we'll see. Yeah, I don't want all the, like there were in the mittens one that I worked on, there were 2 different color reds in there. I did the mittens all one color red with the white stripes. I just like it better that way, so that's what I did. The other thing I started this week and I worked on was Peppermint Parlor, which is part 4, can't talk this morning, of Snow Village. It's cute. It's this one. It's very cute. And I didn't get a ton done, but I've gotten a little bit done. So this is what I've gotten done. The garland across the top and the roof, most of the roof line. This is that fabric that is harder for me to work on because it's flimsy. And I like a stiffer hold in my hand because I stitch in hand. So I ended up starching it a little bit. I don't know if that's a no-no, but it definitely works for me in my hand hold. So I did start on that. And the last whip I have that I made any progress on this week, because I had finishes, so I didn't have a whole lot of progress on my whips. This is the newest jar collaboration between Hands On Design and Priscilla Blaine. Let me get the right card out here. It's called Snowy. This is the one I got the small done already. I think I started the small the day it came, and only took me, I didn't bring my stitch journal down here for cross stitch, but I think it only took me 3 days. So I only cross stitch in the mornings for about a half hour to an hour, cross stitch at night for probably an hour to 2 hours maybe while we're watching TV. It only took me 3 days and a couple lunch times to get that done. It was a very quick stitch. I find all of these kind of a quick stitch. And I decided, since this was already on my whip list anyway, let me get some of this floss off of here, that I was going to go ahead and start the jar. And so I started this morning, and I've only been stitching on it for about an hour. Let me show you the jar again, because there's not a lot of stitching on here, just so you can see. Let me show you the jar. Let's see if I can get the glare off. And I start up in this corner of the jar, right there. I started with that snowflake, and that's how much I got done this morning. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. So, the Housewives of Cross Stitch, Priscilla Blaine and Chelsea, they stitch by days, and I wish I'd brought my cross stitch journal down because I was writing them down. They were things like Merry Monday, I think Tuesday is a free day, Wednesday is Witchy Wednesday, Thursday is a free day, Friday is Fall Friday, Saturday is Stars and Stripes Saturday, and I think Sunday is Santa Sunday. So they do that to kind of help themselves stay motivated to stitch. So I was trying to find like an adaptation of that would work for me. The only problem that I have with that one at all is Witchy Wednesday, and it's not a problem other than I don't really do Halloween. Like, I love the fall stuff, and I love pumpkins and That kind of Halloween stuff. But I'm not going to stitch a bunch of witches. I'm really just not into the witch thing. I don't know. Although I think some of the witch cross stitches are really cute. It's not something I'm going to decorate with necessarily. I don't like that part of Halloween. I don't know. Well, I know why. It's a long story that I'm not going to get into here. And it's personal to me, so I don't want to do that either. But I just don't get into Halloween. So I don't want Witchy Wednesday. So I'm trying to think of a W word that would suit some of the things that I love for Wednesday. I have no problem with Santa Sunday, except I don't have any Santas started. So that would mean I do have patterns for Santas, so I could pick one and start it today. But I think if I do Merry, I would still have to start a Christmas. Oh no, Merry Monday, I have the Advent calendar, so that would fit for that. But I could do Snowy Sunday and work on snowmen, which is kind of my thing right now, because we're in the winter time, and I think you tend to want to stitch what you're in, whether you like it or not. I think we try not to. I think my head says stitch for spring and it'll be done for spring and you can decorate for spring. But I levitate to all these snowman things. Like I found 2 patterns that are just something I want to get, and I don't need any more patterns. One of them is Snowbirds. It's with Thy Needle and Thread. And one of them's Frosty Night by Blackbird Designs, and I may just have to get them. And I don't know why, because I'm looking on my pegboard wall. All of my patterns are hanging out for me to see. The only ones that are in storage are the ones that I've already completed, and they're hanging on a pegboard wall in there. I have plenty to start, and I have snowmen. Like I have the Chalkboard Farm snowman one. I have snowmen to do. But these 2, I saw these 2 patterns, and I just think they're stinking adorable. And I would love, and the Snowbirds one, I looked at that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you search Snowbirds by With Thy Needle and Thread. It reminds me of me and my husband, and I don't know why. But I do want to stitch it. So I don't know, I may make Snowy Sunday. I have to finalize this, and we'll finalize what I'm doing by next week maybe. And maybe when I come on next week, I'll have some sort of formal thing that I'm following. Tuesdays and Thursdays are free days, so I can stitch whatever I want. And you guys know I have plenty of whips, so I can definitely go between all of those. But yeah. So, all right, just checking off some things, making sure I talk about everything I wanted to talk about. We did whips. Okay, couple things. I ended up on one of the big Fat Quarter Shop sales, ended up getting a couple of these pouches. This one says Create. I forget what the other ones say. For like $2 a piece or something like that. And I ended up making this one into just my bits and bobs. So I have needle threaders in here because I have some needles that I use that I really do have to thread with a needle threader, because I just can't with some days with my hands or with my eyes. I have my glasses lights in here. These are Vivolux lights. They are bright. They clip to your glasses. And in my house, it's nice because in not every area of my house do I have awesome lighting. So these help. I can stitch wherever. It's got thimbles in here. I have a fabric star that's holding needles in here. I have, just weird stuff in here. Needle threaders, just bits. And this goes with me everywhere I go. And this is small enough, which is nice. I can fit it kind of into a whip bag if I'm taking it to work. So it's just things. One of my eye lights keeps turning on its own, so that's that. And the other thing I wanted to ask, so this is the last thing I wanted to really talk about. Any beekeepers out there or know of any beekeepers? I'm kind of curious about something. We had, I want to say like 6 or 7 frames of honey that we took off the beehives in early fall. and they were sitting in our garage for months into December. Of course, they were capped, they were on a board, in a frame holder, on a board on top. Nothing was getting into them by any stretch of the imagination. And plus, we filter our honey anyway as we bottle it, so there's nothing in there that doesn't need to be in there anyway. Anyway, that honey we spun early December, and we spun it just before we had house guests. So I want to say second week in December. What we did is we brought the frames into our house, let them warm up for a few days, so that we could spin them, because otherwise, really cold honey does not spin well. And we spun them inside. But life just got busy. It was no intention of our own to do that. Life just got so busy that we could not spin the honey. It was just crazy pants, as you guys know from watching other videos. I'm probably the most relaxed I've been in months, just because we're in January and things have settled and the holidays have passed. And anyway, this is just relaxed. You can see I still have garland up down here. I need to take that down. But yeah. So that honey, we got probably 1.5 gallons, maybe more, maybe 2 gallons off of those frames. In all of that honey, we spun it on 12/21 because I dated the jar. So this has been sitting in our garage, from probably late September, early October through December. Every jar that we spun out of that has become like this. So just so you guys are aware, most of the honey that we spun earlier in the season is starting to crystallize in our pantry cupboard a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. And that is normal. We get some of that in some jars almost every year. It's not fermenting. It's not anything. It's just crystallizing, which honey that you don't process and you don't stabilize tends to do that. And we don't find a problem with that. We use honey exclusively in our house. We don't use white sugar. We don't use any of that stuff. We use honey. And that's mainly why we have our bees, is for our own personal use, although we do sell to friends and family. All the honey that we spun from this, and I should have brought the open jar. I opened one of these jars because I was curious about this, has turned to this. It's like an opaque. It is solid, like really solid. Like I just put my fingerprint in there. Okay. It's almost the texture of creamed honey that you buy in the store. So I was doing a little research, and there's a thing called ice honey. And it looks just like this. And I suspect that this is ice honey because it froze in our garage and was frozen for a little while. And then we brought it in and did this and spun it out. So yesterday I went to Google ice honey because I wanted to know exactly what that was. Well, of course, there was a honey beekeeper that advertised that ice honey has a special proprietary process. Goes through a special proprietary process to create. This stuff tastes just, there's nothing wrong with this honey. It is perfectly fine. It spreads like maybe peanut butter, maybe a little thicker. But it spreads. It's completely spreadable. It melts in coffee. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this, just as there's nothing wrong with our honey that crystallizes in the pantry. But the question is, specialized proprietary process, is that just leaving it in your garage to freeze and then thawing it out and spinning it? Because I think that's what it is. This is 12/21, so it's not even been a month, and this is already the consistency of a little thicker than peanut butter. And it's really yummy. Like, honey's yummy anyway. This is late season honey. I think late season honey has way more depth of flavor than early season honey, and I don't know why that is, if that's the area we're in. I just think that the late season honey has way more flavor to it than the early season. I like them both. I use them both. We are big on beekeeping and honey using, and we think it's good for the environment, just as we are trying to reduce our single-use plastic. We think that's important to the environment. We think composting is important to the environment, so we have composting going on. We don't have a lot of garden going on. We support the local farmers by buying their produce now. But yeah, it's just a curious question. And you guys probably don't even care, but I do. I think that you're going to advertise something as a special proprietary process, that it should actually be that. I'm quite upfront, and this just sat in our garage until we had time to spin it, which means it froze probably repeatedly several times, and maybe we just got lucky. I don't know. Maybe it should be monitored more than that, and we just got lucky. That could be too. But I love my honey. I love my bees. We had a really rough year this year with our bees. As you guys know from following along with me, my husband and I had many, many, many stings this year because our life was such that we had a hard time dealing with the bees on days that they should be dealt with, and ended up having to deal with them on days that they should not be dealt with. This year's going to be a little different in that regard. Hopefully, our life's a little different now than it was last year. But yeah, I'm already looking forward to, I already have plans for my bees this year. I'm hoping I go out to 2 very healthy, happy hives. The checks I've done on them so far this year have been good. They've had plenty of fly days. I think yesterday they were flying yesterday. It was over 50 degrees here. They've flown several times this month because we've had warmer days and I've been out there. So I'm hoping in the spring we open 2 very healthy, happy, robust hives, and then we get them going again, heavy in the spring, and get making honey. I'm hoping this year to get some, if I have 2 hives coming out of the winter, we are going to do splits and make it 4. We did walkaway splits last year that worked perfectly. I want to try to do 2 walkaways this spring, and if the hives are healthy and robust enough, we will do 2 walkaways in the spring and let them build, and we'll feed them, let them build up their 2 deeps. And then my goal is to eventually, if not this year, next year, to be having frames in there where we can just kind of cut out the honeycomb and bottle that, because I've had some requests for that. But we'll see. Everything will depend on what happens with the spring. Other things I'm working on is long arm quilting videos. I do have a long arm quilting service. You can go to alittlefarmquilts.com. There is a quilting page on that website that has a way to contact me and prices, so if you're interested in that. I have an Etsy shop, A Little Farm Quilts, there as well. I am on Facebook, Instagram. Although I post on Instagram more, I try to remember to click that button to share it to my Facebook page as well, and sometimes I do not. So, but like and share my videos. Let me know if there's something you want to see that I haven't shown you, because I try to be an open book here. Or if you have questions, or if you'd like certain tutorials, go with that too. I'll add it to my list, because I do have a running list going. But thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Everybody have a great rest of your Sunday and a good week this week. I'll see you next weekend.